Hey everyone, welcome to the Autoimmune Dietitian YouTube channel where I cover everything related to autoimmune diseases and diet and lifestyle, and I'm just trying to give you lots of tips and tricks to help you live better. My name is Annie, I'm a registered dietitian, and today we are going to talk about making really good dietary habits and making habit changes. So habits are truly one of the hardest things to start. They take on average about 66 days to solidify and become a routine habit. However, most people give up sooner than that. So when it comes to autoimmune diseases, diet is one of the most effective ways to lower inflammation and improve symptoms. And I encourage my clients to implement both short and long-term habits to help them on their healing journey. So today we're going to discuss how to create new dietary habits and how to make sure that you stick with them. Before I jump in, I just need to attach a disclaimer to this video that the information in today's talk is not the substitute for the diagnosis, treatment, or care of disease by a medical provider. This is for informational purposes only. So please consult your qualified health professional for any changes you make to your medical care. How do you create a habit? So according to James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, there are 4 simple steps in creating a habit. It's cue, craving, response, and reward. So cue is a trigger that helps you start a behavior. Craving is the motivation or desire for that behavior. Response is the actual habit, and reward is the end goal of that habit. So while this all seems great, how does this apply to diet? Well, Clear breaks this down further into 4 laws of creating either a good habit or a bad habit. And when it comes to diet, we are trying to create good habits like eating more whole foods, and we're trying to break bad habits like eating less sugar or processed foods. So in forming a good habit, there is a law of behavior change framework. And the framework contains 4 laws that correspond to each of the habit forming steps. So these laws are: 1, you want to make it obvious, which should be your cue. 2, you want to make it attractive, which should be your craving or your motivation. 3, you want to make it easy, which would be your response. And 4, you want to make it satisfying, which would be your reward. So when you're trying to break a habit, like eating too much sugar or processed foods, you want to do the opposite of creating a good habit. So the framework actually flips to: the cue is making it invisible. You want to make it unattractive so that there's no craving or motivation. You want to make it difficult, making the response really hard. And then you want to make it unsatisfying so there'll be no reward at the end of it. So let's take an example of eating more vegetables. The cue for starting that habit would be having vegetables available in your refrigerator that are prepped and ready to eat. Again, that would make it obvious. The craving would include a great recipe that you enjoy that includes vegetables, and that would be making it attractive. The response is an easy recipe that you can either whip up quickly or have already cooked and is ready to eat, and that would be making it easy. And then the reward would be eating this dish and thoroughly enjoying it, which would be making it satisfying. So when I help people with diet changes, I take on 2 different or key approaches depending on the type of person. And the key framework for an anti-inflammatory eating is really increasing whole foods and reducing processed ones. And it's really as simple as that, but clearly it's not easy because otherwise everyone would be doing it. So here again are the 2 different approaches I take that you can start using to implement healthy eating habits to start feeling better. So the first approach is going cold turkey. So I believe it takes about 10 days of a very strict clean diet to start seeing improvement. And if you are a person who can cut out a lot of food for a short period of time, I would recommend this as a good starting point. Most people need to see some sort of result to stick with a habit change. If they don't see the result, the motivation will be lost. And when I say clean diet, I mean absolutely no processed foods. This includes cutting out all refined sugar, grains, additives, flavors, colors, gums, stabilizers, and any other non-food ingredient. You can also take this a step further by cutting out common inflammatory foods like gluten, dairy, corn, soy, nuts, and grains. And so it almost looks like an autoimmune protocol diet, but doing it for 10 days, you will actually see a difference. So my next approach for people who feel very overwhelmed by big changes in diet is doing a step-down approach. So if this is you, if cutting out all those foods is like, no way, I could never do that, The best approach is to set an overall goal or habit and then break that habit into smaller steps. So let's say your overall habit is eating an anti-inflammatory diet to reduce autoimmune symptoms. Step 1 might be eat more vegetables or cut out refined sugar. You can make these more specific by saying, I will not eat any foods with refined sugar for 6 out of 7 days a week for 2 weeks. Then, in order to execute this goal, you want to make sure sugar is invisible, so remove it from your home. You want to make it unattractive, so you could, visualize swollen joints or fatigue when you eat it. You want to make it difficult to eat, so again, removing all access to refined sugar. And then you want to make it unsatisfying. This is a little bit tricky because obviously we all love sugar and it makes us feel good, but I challenge people to actually be mindful about eating sugar. And when you are mindful about kind of the taste, the texture, the smell, and notice how it feels and how it makes you feel, most people find that things with a lot of refined sugar doesn't make them feel really good. Also, having an accountability partner can be really helpful. Some clients find journaling helps them stay accountable to themselves because they don't want to actually write down that they ate sugar and broke their goal that they were trying to achieve. And again, it's a very short-term goal. So I think most people can do that for 2 weeks. All right, so now we're going to talk about diet habits to help you implement change. So whatever diet change you are trying to implement, there are several top ways that you can be successful. And here are my top tips for, being successful with any diet change. The first one is you really want to be specific about your goals. So each goal should mirror a SMART goal. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So the goal mentioned above, you will not eat refined sugar 6 out of 7 days a week for 2 weeks, is an example of a SMART goal. It is measurable, it is time-bound by 2 weeks, it's achievable because I allow you 1 cheat day, it's very structured, and these goals work because they give you a clear and structured approach to reaching your desired action. You know after that 2 weeks, that specific amount of time, if you were successful or if you were not. And using short-term goals is a lot easier to swallow when working towards larger goals like health and long-term dietary habits. My next tip is having a plan for your meals and snacks. So this falls under the response step of a habit. You really want to make habit change easy, right? The harder it is, the more unlikely you will be to make that change. And when it comes to food, the easiest way to make a food and diet change is to have a weekly plan for what you are going to eat. It sounds very mundane and simple, but it works. This will probably include some meal planning and food prepping, but honestly, the number one reason why my clients fail on goals is when they forget to plan, they don't prep their food, or they don't bring food with them. It happens when you least expect it because, first of all, life gets really busy, and second of all, unexpected events happen. So you have to be ready when life throws everything at you. My next tip is establish non-food rewards to achieve your goals. So while dietary changes can really help, and it helps your symptoms, sometimes it's hard to see the long-term benefits, especially if you've been making changes for a while. Those incremental changes tend to minimize over time. So establishing a non-food reward system for being consistent with your eating habits is a great way to maintain motivation. Whether it's a manicure, a spa day, a shopping spree, a vacation, make your rewards something to look forward to. Lastly, tracking your progress. So symptom changes may not always be that obvious, and many times dietary changes bring on symptom changes that people do not always expect or think they need changing, like digestive issues, energy. Sometimes it's totally random, like a postnasal drip that you never thought was connected to food, and all of a sudden it's gone away now that you've made some diet changes. So using a symptom tracker can be really helpful to see progress and stay motivated. So just to recap today, we focused on, what habits are, how to establish them, how to change them, what are ways that we can use diet as, habits to change our diets, and then my top tips for, sticking with those dietary habits. If you would like more help managing your autoimmune disease, your inflammation, I would love to chat with you. I offer free 15-minute discovery calls. If you go to my YouTube profile, there should be a link to book that there. And if you can't find it there, it is on my website, AnnieRubin.com. There should also be a link to my website and my YouTube profile. While you're on my website, I have a very extensive blog. I have some free downloadable handouts and guides that will help you, hopefully, in your autoimmune healing journey. And lastly, if you do not subscribe to my YouTube channel, please hit the little subscribe button. I do put these videos out about every week, just trying to give you lots of information to help you live better with your autoimmune disease. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.